other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Notified us. Anybody else reporting? Want to introduce myself. I'm George Tolumsis. I'm the vice chair of the board. I'm chairing tonight because our chair of the last several years, Charles Roberts, is temporarily off the board. He's seeking reinstatement, and he's, I think, been appointed and likely to be back on the board next month. But he's not here right now. And
Here it is.
right.
Or somebody.
Yeah, the mayor has, because we needed, for one of the proceedings tonight, we needed 4 board members. The mayor has recently to sit in. A bit nostalgic too, I'm sure.
Yeah. On this side of the table and through that.
So I'd like to move Amy up to a voting position for tonight. And Chuck, you don't need elevation anymore. You are now a full member. Congratulations. Before we get on to the further part of the agenda, I just want to note a couple of changes to the agenda. We were going to have item number 3, the annual reorganization. This typically happens in July, but we didn't have a July meeting. And because of Charles's status, because he will soon be rejoining the board, and I expect, given recent history, he is interested in, the board would be interested in him continuing to chair. We're going to hold off until September to do the annual reorganization. And the other thing, item 6A, which was related to the potential initiation of an amendment to the zoning ordinance about open space cluster development, we hadn't gotten the final version from FERCog, so we're going to hold on to that as well, so we get that. And just let people know, otherwise, the remainder of the agenda is we're going to do in a moment. The minutes for June 15th. Then we are going to have a public hearing on the accessory dwelling unit. That's one of the sign-up sheets. Then we're going to do a site plan review. We're having a sign-up sheet for that, but I do want to let people know it's not officially a public hearing, but we are going to allow some public input. And then after that, we have a couple of approval not required items for the agenda. So the first item is the approval of minutes of June 15th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Comments on it? A couple things. There were just a few typos of 4 S's missing. So I don't know if you want me to get into that or not, but more substantively on bottom page 6, Eric, it was a omission where it says near the bottom paragraph, Allison Gage.
Yeah, I caught that and I added from the FERCog.
Okay.
We've already fixed that.
And the other thing I wanted to note is on page 5, a little below halfway down, for most of the public input about the solar, the large solar, there was a response from the applicant noted. And the last one from Eugene Dementia, I thought there was, I recall there was a response, but I don't see it here. I don't know if I'm just misremembering or about how many homes would be powered by the new solar array. And I thought there was some comment he made about that, so I don't know. I just thought that would be helpful to record for posterity if we have it. So. Thanks. With those adjustments, and I can just get out the S's that we're missing, is there any further discussion? All in favor of approving those? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank.
So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and it's the application of Alexander Chapin for a property located at 335 Greenfield Road for an detached accessory dwelling unit. And Mr. Chapin, is it pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's, like you said, a detached accessory dwelling unit. The asphalt shingles. I don't, is there any other information?
No, thank you for starting us off. Eric, help me out if you would, because I'm not usually chairing this. The public hearing aspect of this, when can we begin that?
Sorry about that, I was trying to count the minutes. So the first thing, read the public hearing notice into the record. That opens up the public hearing.
Okay,
And then separately open up public comment within the public hearing.
okay. And that would be the time to do that now?
Not the public comment yet, but for the reading into the public record, if you want, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Notice is hereby given that the Greenfield Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 3rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Johnson Community Center located at 35 Pleasant Street on the application of Alexander Chapman Green River Builders, Inc. for property located at 335 Green River Road, Assessor's Tax Map R33, Lot 36, which is located in the Rural Residential Zoning District for a special permit pursuant to sections 200-4.2 C21, 200-7.18, 200-8.3, 200-8.4 of the zoning ordinance in order to allow the construction of a detached accessory dwelling unit at this location.
Thank you. And again, if you would help me out, because Charles is usually handling this, at what point should I begin the public comment period?
Typically, the applicant gives a presentation, which he just did, and then the board members ask questions, and once all that is
Very good.
satisfied, then you can open it up to public comment.
Sounds familiar. Thank you. And we should just have the board members introduce themselves as well. George, Vice Chair.
Charles Kenny.
Roxanne Wiedegardner sitting in for Charles Roberts under the capacity of the charter, in which I can serve on any multiple boards when necessary.
Amy McMahon.
So, do the board members have questions for the applicants?
I have nothing, no.
No, but just for our own like education, because we haven't had that many ADUs come through. Like there, it was because of the zoning, it required the frontage and the lot size to have this ADU on it. And could you just like illuminate like what those requirements were? How this?
Yeah, the zoning ordinance allows, in many zoning districts, based on a recent amendments a couple of years ago by the city council, it allows one family, two family, and three family units by right in just about every, in all residential districts and in some of the commercial districts, which is very progressive, and most towns don't do that. But we also allow detached accessory dwelling units, or within the unit as well. In this case, it's detached, not attached to the house or in addition to the house. It's detached separate from the house. And as long as you meet the frontage requirements for the single-family home, then you're allowed a detached accessory dwelling unit at the location. And then this property meets the frontage and area requirements for all that. They're allowed to proceed with a detached accessory dwelling unit. I think that answers the question.
Would it be, the memo from Eric on his input about this proposal, because we didn't meet in July, it's been a while, it came out in mid-June. Would it be helpful for me to read through that quickly, just to get a reminder context? Again, this is Eric as Director of Planning and Development. Recommendations overall, he had no issues or concerns relative to the special permit request. Mentioned that it is in the rural residential zone, and properties to the east and east direction are also zoned RC. Is the use allowed by special permit within that district, and the planning board is the reviewing authority. The project includes a proposed detached accessory dwelling unit of 604 feet at that address, a minimum of 2, but no more than 4 off-street parking spaces must be available for use by the owner, occupants, and tenants. The existing driveway is long enough for several parking spaces. There is also existing barn structure on the property that can be used for off-street parking. As far as the square footage, the ordinance states that the maximum gross floor area of accessory dwelling units be 900 square feet or 1/3 of the total gross floor area of a single-family home, whichever is greater. And at that time, at least, the applicant was proposing a 604 square foot, one-bedroom unit. We'll come back to you in a minute about that. Dimensional requirements, all dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance have been met. Open space landscaping, the minimum landscape open space requirement under current standards of the zoning ordinance for the rural residential district is 40%. This proposal meets the open space landscaping requirement. No lighting, as far as lighting, no lighting is, the ADU has, is shown in the plan set. Any new lighting will need to be shielded downcast lighting. Utilities per policy of the DPW, water service for any detached ADU must come from the primary house. The submitted site plan shows a water connection from the primary house to the proposed attached ADU. The applicant is proposing a new septic system for the detached ADU. And signage, no signage has been proposed. That was Eric's input, so just to refresh memories.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Oh,
two
good.
comments from two other boards.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Fire prevention officer, he has no comments or issues with the proposed development, and from the engineering superintendent, also has no comments or issues with the proposed project.
Thank you. I wanted to check with you, Mr. Chairman, because I know the original proposal was for 604 square feet, and I know the max is 900.
Yeah, so I don't know, the 604 square feet, I don't know if that takes into account of, so when I say 900, it's actually a little under 900, and I was taking into account of there's a loft area, so I think the square footage that you reference is just taking into account of the footprint of the actual building.
Thank you. And I know from having gone out there, it's very, it's quite removed from the road.
Yes.
Its location, is not near any neighbor as far as I can tell. I did have one question. One of the standards in the ordinance is the accessory dwelling unit shall be compatible in design with the primary residence. I wonder if you could comment on that.
So are you looking, what exactly is your question? Is it gonna match architecturally with the existing building?
Yeah, how does it compare, I guess?
It'll compare, similar in architectural design. The only real difference would be, the main house that's, there right now has clapboard siding. This will be vertical pine siding. Other than that, there isn't really much difference
Okay.
in
Thanks.
design.
It is an inexact standard, but I just, want to make sure we go over
Yeah.
all the things that are in the ordinance. And I was looking for, as far as, I know that this is one of the, I just want to acknowledge, this is one of the types of units for families, to have additional family members, have housing on the site, is one of the purposes of this
Right.
ordinance, so.
And that's exactly what this
Yes.
is for.
Yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that. Is there any further comments from the board? I should let you know, and I apologize, but this is okay to do it at this point. So a special permit of this nature requires 4 votes to approve it. And so obviously, there are 4 of us here tonight, so that we would all have to unanimously approve it. You do have the option of waiting until we have a 5-person board if you're concerned that it might be, give you a better chance of getting approval. You can always get a sense from how we're, responding or
Yeah.
speaking to see if you feel comfortable going forward, but I just wanted to let you know about that.
I feel comfortable, so does the homeowner, so.
That-
You're the gambler.
tiny accessory dwelling unit. Louise Amia, have you signed up?
Sorry, I was under about
But, okay, that's what I was guessing, thanks. And Bob Device? This, for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. And 330 Green River Road?
Yes.
Okay, just need it for the record, thank you.
Yeah. No, just came to support Atkins Collins. Have been neighbors of ours, our family, for 40 years, and I think it's a great idea. Hopefully it'll go forward.
You live across the street?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who didn't sign up who wants to comment on this proposal project? Seeing none, do we have to have a vote for this? Yes. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, at this point, any further discussion by the board? on this proposal? No? Yes.
If I may, I just am delighted to see this type of an ADU come forward because it is exactly what we were envisioning when we created that bylaw all those years ago, or ordinance at this point, all those years ago.
All right, so we can vote. All in favor of this, oh, yes, please.
Should be a motion and a second. And a vote.
Just testing her. Thank you. Can I have a motion?
You used to be able to correct everything.
I know.
So moved.
It's the pressure. Thank you, Amy.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous. Very good. The gavel paid off.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could just advise
Please.
the applicant. So I have 10 days to type this up, bring it to the city clerk, the decision, get the board to sign it, and once it's clocked in with the city clerk, then a 20-day appeal period starts. You're allowed to proceed at your own risk if you feel confident there will be no appeals, or you could wait till all appeals are settled before starting the project. You can give me a call Monday or tomorrow with more details.
Okay.
You're all set? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Pray for no rain.
Yeah, right.
So the next item is the site plan review. And for the application of Albee Incorporated for property at 208 Mohawk Trail. Just to orient people, as far as the process, we're going to have a presentation by the applicant, have some discussion, questions from the board. As I was saying earlier, this is not officially a public hearing, so there's no inherent right to, obviously the public has a right to attend the meetings, but there's no inherent right to speak. But we did know that there was quite a bit of public interest in this. We've gotten quite a number of emails that Eric has forwarded to the board, and so did want to afford people a chance to express their thoughts. When we get to that, I'll give some parameters about that. But I want to go ahead. I also, before you proceed, I just want to make a disclosure that I am a member of the Franklin Community Co-op Board of Directors, which has a market in downtown Greenfield and also in Shelburne Falls. But I believe I can act in accordance with my sworn oath in this capacity without that influence. But I just wanted to disclose that. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman. I guess for tonight, members of the board, Mr. Mayor, Matthew Oates, Benderson Development. I am the Director of Engineering for Benderson. We are the property owners of the former Candlelight Inn. It's an approximate 6.5-acre current vacant parcel of land on the south side of Route 2 Mohawk Trail, on the west side of Robbins Road behind the existing McDonald's that is there. With me this evening is Rich Durbis with Aldi's, Luke DiStefano with Bowler Engineering, the design engineer, Jeff Bandini with McMahon, who is the traffic engineer for the project, and Andrew Hessick, the architect with APD for the project as well. Overall, as a company, Benderson is very excited about project. We have owned this property for approximately 20 years. About 10 years ago, we worked with the city, we got the candlelight in, demolished, worked to get that removed, get that property cleaned up. We thought we had a project going back to 2007 on this site. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We have spent the next 15 years actively marketing this site, trying to get a project here. We have now partnered with all these, and we think we have a really, really exciting project, something that's really good for the area and the community. We previously had worked with the Conservation Commission. We spent many months going over the site with them, site visits with them as well, and they did issue an order of conditions for this project on March 1st. The order of conditions for the project is the exact same project that was submitted. There have been no changes made to the project since the order of conditions was issued on March 1st. We are also going through the NEPA process currently. We did receive some comments in regards to that. One of the comments we received was from Mass DOT. They agreed with our request for a waiver just to do the single EIR for the project. And as part of it, they also stated that they have their existing project going on for Route 2. That's going to take care of existing deficiencies and will also be able to mitigate any possible impacts from the Aldi's project. Overall, the Aldi's itself is 19,500 square feet in this area. There's a 97 space parking field in front of it. There will be an infiltration basin underground below the parking lot that will then discharge over to Speedbrook. We'll be pulling utilities from Route 2. We'll be using the same access point that is there today. It will be a right-in, right-out access point based on the configuration of Route 2 in that area. There is only two sides access for the Aldi's. We pulled that up and in as far as we could with the site to minimize the amount of impacts. That was kind of what we also went over with the Conservation Commission in regards to the overall layout, making sure that all of the impacts and everything in this area were minimized to the extent possible. We have what I believe is an attractive building as well. Andrew will be coming up to discuss that as well, so I will turn that over to him right now to discuss the architecture.
Again, my name is Andrew Kasich. I work at APD Engineering and Architecture. It's located in the Rochester, New York area. I've been working on all these projects for the past 5-ish years, working in the Massachusetts area with Richard for the past 1.5 years. Some buildings that we've designed and put up in the past year or two include Westfield and Danvers, Massachusetts, with this exterior redesign look that we've been using for the past few years with our prototype building. I just want to talk about some of the basic stuff that is included with this floor plan. We have our cart corral up against the side of the building here with our entrance, walking in through our produce area, refrigerated areas, freezer and cooler. We have our checkouts at the front here with 7 self-checkout lanes as well. We have our 2 restrooms and the employee areas in the back here, and obviously our back room for storage, receiving, and our e-commerce, which will serve curbside pickup at this location. As for our building, this is the facade that will be facing Route 2 with our signage on this side. We have signage on this side as well, facing Robbins Road with our 1-on-12 angled roof. This is a big feature for our exterior redesign that you see all over the place these days for all the new Aldi's. It's a structural steel building with metal stud backups for our masonry veneer, which is a reddish, dark red Stanton blend specifically. And then we have some fields of a fiber cement panel, which is a Nichiha product with bark color. We have clear story storefront glazing along the first aisle here, up high, giving some natural light on the first aisle. And then we also have 2 nice windows along our stacking counter where you can package up your groceries and everything in reusable bags and looking out to the cart corral here. So yeah, that is our building. It's our standard prototype building. Really excited about this project and looking forward to it. Thank you.
I think that's a general overview, so at this point, happy to answer any questions the board has. Design professionals here as well, Rich from Aldi, so happy to answer any questions the board has about the project.
Is this must be a smaller Aldi compared to your other projects?
This is our prototype size.
Oh, so this is like the same size as the one in Hadley?
identify where the, when you said the front, where the front is on the,
So the front facing is,
facing, to, that's the
Yep.
main, thank you. One question I know I was unclear from the, design, I wanted to double check on was snow storage. Someone able to speak to
The
this?
snow storage space, it's right on.
So one section clearly later.
Sorry, I don't have my glasses. It's, here it is right here. Proposed snow storage.
Yes,
And there's
so-
some over here as well.
yep, and then those areas, and then we'll also have it along entrance as well, so kind of using the green space sort of around the perimeter as well.
Kind of related to that. Because the snow storage is all on, pervious, soil, you're pushing it off the impervious soil. I was struck at the, difference in the number of parking spaces, that you're proposing versus what is, required. And I asked that probably in the context that for a number of years, we've been trying to, be mindful of the amount of impervious surface and, limit it to the extent that it's feasible.
Yeah, we typically look for about 100 parks
I'm
per
sorry?
location. About 100 parking spaces per location. Is on average what we look for. So this fits. What we have.
Something close to the 65 seems not,
That would not work for us.
wouldn't work.
You know, so we would back it up.
You're at 97, is that correct? Did I do that
Yes.
earlier? Yeah, so just under the 100, yeah.
It is, I mean, it's, 100 plus or minus. Urban locations, a lot less necessary.
Staying on parking, I know that it, the bike parking, I think in one of your initial proposals, you weren't planning to have bike parking, but you had recently responded to it.
Those are like rack on the sidewalk.
Could you tell us where? If
I think
know,
you
if
just
it's
sent
not-
something out on Tuesday, Eric sent us.
Yeah, that's up. It's right up there. Right across the front of the store.
Actually, that's not where it was identified on. It was more, to the right of where.
Was it right here?
Um,
It's either right here or right here. Initially it was designed right here, and I asked them to move it here because of the traffic and the pedestrian walkway, so.
You know, I'm referring to Eric, there was something you sent us on
Doesn't show on this
Tuesday.
one?
Yes.
And that's it.
Oh, I have it.
Thank you.
So it's not on this plan, but it is, I've asked them to put it right there.
Okay, I just wanted, Eric sent us something a couple days ago, I just wanted, because it's in a slightly different location, which was near the front entrance, which seemed to be. as
So
I
I had spoken with Paula about we talked about a bike rack, and it was up there, but I thought that would conflict with the pedestrian walkway, so we need to put it there. So it's right in here, use the sidewalk right there, yeah, this way. No, we don't have to cross the parking field as well.
You want me to read this?
Well, I was more referring to the map, is
Okay, yep, we're good then.
so that was, okay. And I was wondering about, low impact development, on site. Someone can comment.
Yeah, good evening. For the record, Luke DiStefano with Polar Engineering. So we looked at some different ideas. The site really, given some of the restrictions we have with jurisdictional areas, riverfront area, didn't really lend itself well to some of the typical LID designs that you would see at other developments. So what we've tried to do is obviously through the implementation of the subsurface infiltration system, as well as a series of grass swales, one that collects a significant amount of stormwater here and conveys it into a yard drain that ultimately puts it back into the infiltration system. We've tried to implement LID where we could. Just again, this site isn't typically ideal, so the grass swale is really the only LID technique that we've utilized at this particular location. Apart from the other BMPs that we've identified in the stormwater report that we provided to the city.
The basin infiltrates the full 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions from the board at this point? I wanted to clarify just about detail. There were, I think, ended up being four handicap spaces.
Yeah, I think
And I think it indicated that the width of those was 8 feet on the
there's 4 with several being accessible.
Yes, I did see that. I believe, Eric, that all parking places have to be 9 feet.
9 by 18, yeah, minimum.
And I think on the plan it identified, for some reason, the handicap spaces were 8 as the unloading section for the van accessible was 8. But I think the others were listed as 8.
Yeah, technically your handicap space is gonna be both the spot itself plus the access area adjacent to it. So you have an 8 by 8 for your van accessible space, so effectively you've got a 16-foot wide space at that location. And then the non-van accessible is an 8 with a 6-foot access aisle, so that's a 14-foot wide parking. So we would meet that minimum 9-foot standard.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't remembered seeing it, just thinking about the width of the handicap parking spaces.
Yeah, because it's the space and the access aisle, so you add them all up and you meet the 9-foot requirement.
Thank you. That clarifies it. Thanks. Well, I have some more things that I want to check in on later, but maybe it'd be good to hear from the public. Unless there's anything else you folks want to add at this point. Well, it's not public yet, so we don't need to open it. So, again, because I know there was quite a bit of public interest in this, so the parameters I wanted to have was that anyone could speak just one time and up to 3 minutes. Eric was going to do the timing. And it's just for us to hear what people have to say. We can't have a back and forth discussion, and just want people to have a chance to say during those 3 minutes what they have to say. And then interest in hearing that. So I think there is there's a sign. And Louise, I had mentioned your name? Yes, so if you want to start off, thank you.
Thank you. There are 3 reasons why I think Aldi should not be allowed to build. I understand that they have by right, but still. There are 3 reasons why I think Aldi should not be allowed to build on Route 2 West as they propose to do. It is true that I shudder to think about the traffic situation in the area around the Route 2 traffic circle. The difficulty in getting in and out of the Big White Plaza is already nightmarish, with traffic racing on Route 2 in both directions. And I don't know if it still exists, but at one time there was even a school bus stop just west of the circle. It's a miracle if no child was ever killed there. It is also true that I believe that Greenfield already has enough grocery stores, and that adding another may simply force one of these faithful providers to close. In such a case, shoppers would likely lose a neighboring option and be forced to go farther afoot to meet their needs. I think we owe our existing businesses the same support that they have given us over the years. But my biggest concern is the fact that the land Aldi wants to build on is a wetland. With this summer's frightening rains flooding local farm fields and washing out area roads, we must surely have it fresh in our minds that wetlands are protected precisely because they give rising waters safe places to go that do not threaten lives, homes, and businesses. To me, it is incomprehensible that Greenfield would allow a 91,000 plus square foot building plus a large parking lot to be built on such a valuable safeguard for the city's well-being. Allowing anyone to put up such a structure on this land seems like a fool's errand, capitalized, and one that invites future trouble onto all of us. I urge the planning board to consider this very carefully before allowing Aldi a carte blanche permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Borgatti.
Thank you. I have sent you a letter, and I just want to emphasize a couple of things within that letter. In 2014, we went through as a community a sustainable master plan. In that sustainable master plan, we tried to develop an approach to development in town that both supported economic development but also supported the idea that that would be done sustainably. The plan that is put before us, Louise has done a great job on the wetlands. I'm not going to go there. What I do want to talk about is the fact that we have another big box, not particularly distinguished. There are no solar panels on that building. There is no green roof on that building. We have another impermeable amount of hardtop that will also provide runoff. It seems to me that the least we can expect, if this is to go forward, is that there be some attention paid to the environmental needs of the community. In addition, if, Aldi's is, as I understand it, is leasing this building. If they don't do well here, they'll leave. We will be, then, as a community, be left with a large behemoth of a building based essentially on 1970s approach to shopping that we as a community will have to figure out what to do with. So it's my belief that if you are going to go forward on this, there are demands that the community should be putting onto this property to make sure that it meets 21st century standards and not 1970s standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Don Batts.
I really would like all these to come to Greenfield. They do have quality products, reasonable prices. And the biggest thing, I won't have to travel. Right now, we travel to Hadley or Northampton. Just recently, they have a store in Northampton and Brattleboro. We've been doing that for years. We have 3 grown children. They're all on their own. And where do they shop? At those stores, whether it be, like I said, Northampton, Brattleboro, or Hadley. So we go out of town anyways. And as far as traffic, if you have traffic coming in, Mayor, I would think that's a good thing. Wouldn't you want traffic? That's a problem I would want. And as far as for maybe these other stores going out, don't you want competition? You want new stores? You want to bring new life into Greenfield? And every time a store wants to come in, you shoot them down? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. When we go out, not only do we go shopping at Aldi's, we might go to Target, we might go to Walmart, we might go someplace else. And we're also going to go out for lunch or dinner. All of that is leaving the town, the city of Greenfield, and going in another direction. That's it.
Thank you. Alvin?
I have submitted to the board a 22-page statement on this project. I can't possibly tell you in 3 minutes all the things that I think are wrong, but let me just say a few things. I hope you will seriously consider. This is another dead piece of architecture for Greenfield. I'm so tired of these boxes, these windowless boxes that have no character and tell you nowhere about where you are. The gentleman said it perfectly. It's a design you see all over the place. We don't need more of this. This is really changing the whole nature and character of our town. At the same time, it's killing jobs elsewhere in town and leaves us with almost no new net fiscal impact and value to the economy of Greenfield. It will attract 394,200 added cars to a section of our roadway which already had 47 accidents over a 5-year study and was described by the Conservation Commission as having, quote, a higher rate of accidents along a heavily traveled route with hazardous intersections. This store, right across from it, across the street, has 14,306 square feet of empty retail space today in the Big White Plaza. I'm going to leave you a copy of this, Mr. Chairman, so you can keep it for the board. I would like it back. If this empty space is filled with retail uses, the traffic numbers that you're seeing in this study would go up by 74%. So nothing has been designed. The traffic report that has been included in this plan did not take into account any of that traffic and did not really take into account the fact that some of the level of service here in the afternoon peak hour is going to go down to a D. Some of them get better because I want everybody in this room to understand there are going to be 2 traffic lights out there now. There's going to be one when you get to Coleraine Robbins and one when you get to Big Y, and a crosswalk phasing for pedestrians, which there won't be any pedestrians. But you're going to find this even more of a bottleneck than you do now. And I've heard a lot of people from the West County complain about they have to get through that to get to Route 91. This store should be downtown, smaller, at a decent scale, and most of the negative impacts to Smead Brook and to the wetland too there is caused only by the fact that this scale is unreasonable. And I wonder why the developer spent 16, 17 years with nothing at all to go in there, and then they came up with this store that said they wanted to locate there. And don't let them tell you that they can't do a smaller footprint. Nobody asked them to. But I researched it. All these is building smaller footprints now that they call a corner store. And it's significantly smaller, around 13,000 square feet. Why not ask them to build something smaller and more appropriate for Greenfield? And this will also increase the impervious area on this site by 121%. So the environmental impacts are unacceptable. They have not minimized and avoided them. They could do far better than they've done, but we should ask them to do that. I would also urge you have the power today to have an independent traffic engineer look at this plan and decide whether it's reasonable or whether it could be improved, and including looking at the space across the street, which if it is ever tenanted will be a real problem for this town. These will not be living wage jobs, $18 an hour with no benefits for a part-timer. I'd rather have the site, the project make the site fit all these rather than they've decided to make not all of these fit the plan. So our master plan has been mentioned. I gave you a lot of reasons why this was not completely incompatible with our 2014 Sustainable Master Plan. Why have a master plan to then have this? It just doesn't make any sense. The board should ask the developer to agree to a 45-day extension of your review time so that you can hire the kind of expertise at their expense that you need to really tell you, is this going to be a traffic problem for the town, the city, or not? So you have, and I want to remind you also that you have the right to disapprove of a plan if it's considered incomplete. This is an incomplete plan. This traffic study is incomplete and does not take into account all the possible traffic that will be coming into the area. I want to urge you to tell the city council, finally, to repair the damage that has been done to our major development review project proposal, which you may not be following, but because of what happened on May 20th on March 20th of 2019, this project doesn't even need a major development review. It comes in here with just a site plan review because they have told you they're going to have 2,160 car trips added a day. If it was 3,000, only then would it need a major development review. So we have lost the ability to look at the financial impact statement to hire an independent. We could have had an independent traffic engineer. I hope you'll do that tonight. But this project is the wrong scale, the wrong program, and in the wrong place, and it will harm us economically. It will not produce new jobs, a net of new jobs. It will not really do anything for the city of Greenfield except make us look more like a corporate town that has been controlled by national retailers. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to leave you this with your permission. If you could just hold on to it, because it's my only beautiful color copy that I have. This is from the people who lease the Robar people who own the Big Y Plaza.
Thank you.
They're the ones who gave that to me. Thank you for your attention.
Mitchell Spike.
I'm going to pass and let Al continue.
No, it's okay.
I'm going to pass.
You don't want to
address
pass?
the issue.
Oh. Is there anyone else who chance. Yes, please. And
Marion,
just give your name.
Marion Griswold. I'd just like to second Susan and Alan, Louise. I think in 2023, to build a building like this with no pervious pavement, with no solar power and so forth, just doesn't make any sense. And I'm very concerned about its closeness to the wetlands, and I'm very concerned about the downtown. And if we want, new businesses in town, they should be encouraged and perhaps even subsidized, helped in some way to be downtown, where we want the town to be vigorous and alive.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Susan Olmsted, I just also want to add my voice to what's already been said. I'm very concerned about the impact on wetlands. I think this project is too big for that site. It's already been demonstrated through comments already made that it seems to be the wrong project in the wrong place. I don't have an opinion for or against all these, but I do have a strong opinion against putting it there, if that's the size. And I also am concerned about downtown revitalization. And this does nothing to contribute to that, which is supposed to be something that this community supports. We have a sustainability plan. The mayor talks to that, wanting the downtown to be sustainable a lot, and I support that. And I don't see how this adds to that at all. I see it detracting from that. And I do think we have enough large grocery stores. We have Foster's, we have BJ's, we have Stop and Shop, we have Big Y, we have countless small groceries, we have an expanding co-op downtown. So this seems redundant and unnecessary, and again, in an extremely wrong place.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Actually, she had her hand up first.
Okay.
I call. Since this is not a public hearing, I'm wondering if, for the sake of the camera as well as the audience, you could clarify what is and isn't under the purview of this board, especially as compared to, say, Conservation Commission or CBA or anything else. What sorts of things could you be looking at that could deny such a project or would require to approve such a project? Thank you.
And what was your name? Sorry.
It's Peg.
Thanks. There was someone else back there? Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. Do I need to say my name? Stephanie Duclos. I'm glad someone that's coming in that's affordable. I want to know how big our hotel that was there, that was now torn down, and now we see all this green space. It's wonderful. But when we talked about the impact, are we replacing, like, is it going where the old hotel used to be? Because I can't tell from the plan exactly where that location is going to be. Is it coming off Robbins Road or and behind McDonald's, or is it adjacent to that and then continuing back up behind that? And I do agree that we should look at some green energy on these buildings. There's a lot of available grants and stuff, and I think we really should be pushing that. But thank you for bringing something affordable to Greenfield, because although I don't know how many people in this room has been to Aldi's, but it saves me a lot of money to go and shop at something a lot more affordable than paying maybe $9 or $10 for half a gallon of milk down at the co-op. Like, there's only so much I can fill a grocery bag, shopping local. And Aldi's is out of town, so we go to Aldi's, we go to Brattleboro, Hadley, Northampton, New Hampshire. And so our money's spent out of town. I'd love it if something affordable was here to keep my dollars here in town.
Thank you. Anyone else? This is the chance to say something if you want to express something, share something with the board. Yes.
My name is Suzanne Carlson, I live in Greenfield, and I just want to speak for somebody who has very low income. And I buy organic, I buy from our farmers, I support our farmers. I'm so grateful we have an active farm network in this area, and that there are means in the state of Massachusetts and in this area for financial support for people who need it. And I don't think going out of town to eat food that's highly processed, maybe even comes from China for all we know, because there's a lot of packaged processed food that goes to Aldi's, as far as I understand. And I just want to, I appreciate everything that the people have said about their concerns about the environment and and the traffic and the design and how it's just not appropriate. I also confess that I've been a longtime member of the co-op. I've been an employee of the co-op, and I'm grateful that they're expanding into a larger facility. So I just think this would really not help. So please look at all these various serious issues that everybody has mentioned.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken at this level? Yes.
Judith Maloney of Greenfield. I just wonder, I used to live in Coleraine for 40-something years, and I know West County, you have to go through that area to get to 91, and I think there are going to be a lot of people. We keep getting stuck right there. That's where you get stuck, and you have to be really careful that you're not messing up anybody coming or going. And I think you really have to take that into account. Seriously.
Yes, in the back.
I'm so glad you guys are coming. You know, I see a lot of, not to be rude, but white hair in this room. There's a lot of people that aren't represented in this room. This is the same group that I see continuously coming and representing the same opinion. But I don't see anyone my age. I don't see anyone with kids in school. Like she said, this woman here says she can afford to shop there. Somebody with 3 hungry boys that play football cannot afford to shop at Greenfield Market. They can. And we traveled when I had boys in school. We traveled like everywhere so we could afford milk. And it usually was always a Walmart. And I heard the same speech from the same people over and over. But I never see anyone from Leiden Woods, Greenfield Gardens represented here. It's all people that are mostly homeowners. Is there any renters even in this room? Like, we are so glad you guys are coming here, and we hope that we can find a way to maybe put some solar on it. Would be cool, because that's our thing here in Greenfield. But other than that, we're very glad, and there's a lot of other people that aren't represented in this room that are just can't wait for them to be here. Thank you. My name's Ryan.
Thank you. Last call. Okay. Thank you. And I did want to acknowledge that we had gotten quite a bit of correspondence from people, emails that Eric had shared with the board. And just a couple quick comments for context. As far as the major development review, this would have qualified under the previous guidelines. And the board has, in the last year or so, we've had some discussions about potentially revisiting that, because at the time that decision was made by the council, I think it's fair to say that the board, who a majority recommended not to do that, our biggest concern was the MDR and not the French King Overlay District. But of course, that would have, even if it were reinstated, it would have no bearing on this current project, just to be clear. And in response to the other question was asked about the process, I was going to review in a bit the purpose, the approval guidelines, and the decision process for site plan review. So just for the board's sake, and also for folks in the public to just understand the process.
George, excuse me. Just, could you have Eric, just for the record, say what kind of correspondence you got? Like how many people said they liked it, didn't like it?
Sure.
Hold the demographic of age and class also.
I've got seven pieces of correspondence from folks who were all against it for similar reasons. And I can't say anything about their age or if they're homeowners or anything like that. We just received the public comment.
Thank you, Eric. So we should probably go over what other input we've had. We've certainly had, Eric. Well, one thing we do have the report from the Conservation Commission of their conditions, and that's been something that was disseminated to the board, as was the traffic study. Did you want to review the other input we had?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So we did receive review comments. Part of the site plan review process, it gets transmitted out to certain departments, Department of Public Works, the Health Department, Building Inspections Department, Department of Planning and Development, Fire Prevention, so Fire Department, and the Commission on Disability Access. So we did receive some review comments from the Commission on Disability Access, review comments from the Department of Planning and Development. We'll later go into details about these. Fire Prevention Officer, Engineering Superintendent, and Health Director. The folks, the applicant has actually responded to all these review comments with comments that were forwarded to the board and how they have responded to the comments from the city departments. I'm satisfied that they've actually met all these requirements and have addressed everything that was mentioned by city departments. If you want me to go into detail on what those were.
Well, I think it would be helpful, and I'll defer to any board members who want any of those read. I know some of them were just no comment or issues.
Yes, Fire Prevention Officer, Health Director, and I had no comments or issues with the project. DPW had some minor comments, I had some minor comments, and the Commission on Disability had some comments.
And some of those were about things that weren't actually relevant to this plan. I think they were things that appeared on the plan but were not relevant, like having a ramp or something like that.
Exactly.
So that was clarified.
That was clarified in the meeting. So for example, some of the plan set details, are typical that apply to most of the stores, but in some cases didn't particularly apply to Greenfield, and they pointed that out in their response to all review comments, which the board was forwarded. They've individually addressed each of the department's comments on a separate sheet. And if you want, those can be read into the record, or if the board is happy with your review of them previously. It's up to you.
The only one I thought would be helpful to go over is your comments. I knew you revised this June 21st.
Yes.
Comprehensive.
So,
did you want me to read that, Eric, or did you want to?
I can read it.
Okay, thanks.
So, comment one of mine under these are under recommended conditions of approval if the board is inclined to approve this application. The applicant shall revise the lighting plan to show a maximum height of 15 feet for lighting poles and submit a copy of the revised plan to the Department of Planning and Development with 30 days of approval. The response, the applicant would like to keep the poles at the proposed height to enhance safety, security, and minimize energy usage associated with the increase in poles needed to accommodate the 15-foot height maximum requirement. The applicant would be happy to discuss this further with the planning board at the August 3rd meeting. So we will get back to that because I'm sure the board will question the applicants. The second comment I had was the applicant shall revise the site plan layout to show location of the bicycle rack and submit a copy of the revised plan to the Department of Planning and Development with 30 days of approval. The comment is acknowledged. Site plan will be updated to indicate locations of proposed bike racks, which was pointed out earlier in the presentation today. Third comment, the applicant shall submit a copy of the following to the planning board prior to construction: the stormwater pollution prevention plan, the highway access permit issued by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and the constructive general permit issued by the U.S. EPA under the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. Their comment response is that comment is acknowledged. The applicant will provide the requested copies of the noted applications prior to construction. Comment 4 on my notes, on my memo. The applicant shall adhere to the order of conditions issued by the Conservation Commission on March 1st, 2023. Response is, the comment is acknowledged. And of course, they have to follow that even if the planning board didn't have that as a condition of approval. We just like to mention it and just support the other boards. Of course, the commission has its own order of conditions that must be followed by the applicant.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to touch on a few other things on your June 21st report to the board. One is the use. The proposed use falls under retail establishment, which is a use allowed by right in the general commercial district. The site plan review and approval from the planning board. We touched on the parking, and then it's 65 spaces, which we require 88 spaces. Trip generation. Based on trip generation data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the proposed grocery store is anticipated to result in approximately 46 vehicle trips, 28 entering, 18 exiting during weekday morning peak hour, approximately 156 vehicle trips, 78 entering, 78 exiting. During the weekday afternoon peak hour, approximately 220 vehicle trips, 110 exiting, entering during the Saturday midday peak hour. The traffic study indicates that the project is anticipated to have a limited impact on the operations of the roadway network adjacent to the site. The shared right turn in, right turn out driveway on Mohawk Trail and the proposed site driveway on Robbins Road are both anticipated to operate at a level of service LOSB or better under the 2030 build conditions. Based on the submitted traffic impact study, the proposed Aldi grocery store is not shown to have a significant impact on the overall traffic operations or safety within the study area. MassDOT has planned roadway improvements along Mohawk Trail that are in the 100% design phase, with construction scheduled to begin in the fall of 2023, would include traffic signal and intersection improvement at the study area of Mohawk Trail and Robbins Road, Coleraine Road, and also at Mohawk Trail with the Big Y Plaza driveway and the KFC driveway. And based on the latest design plans, a traffic signal would be installed at the Big Y Plaza driveway and the KFC driveway along the Mohawk Trail. All setbacks and dimensional requirements have been met. Open space, the minimum landscaped open space requirement under current standards. The zoning ordinance for the GC district is 0%, excluding wetlands and steep slopes greater than 15%. The submitted plan shows that approximately 70% of the parcel will remain as open space. Screening landscaping, the applicant has submitted a detailed landscaping plan for the project. The proposed planting schedule includes all native species based on the location of both existing and proposed vegetation. The project is adequately screened. Lighting, made reference to, they're proposing 13 lighting poles at a height of 25 feet, and 15 is the maximum height allowed based on previous special permit approvals. And signage, the applicant is proposing a freestanding sign, 27 feet in height, 125 square feet in area, which exceeds the requirements for signage in the zoning ordinance, and the proposed sign will require a special permit from the zoning board of appeals. Do any board members feel there's anything else they need reviewed of the input we have from our departments? Does the board have other comments and questions? This one, please.
I took note of the fact that you would rather have higher lights than the allowed amount. Could you expound on why you feel that's important in that particular location?
Yeah, I mean, we picked that height because it casts enough light for safety, and it lights up the parking lot. If we go down to 15 foot, that means we're gonna have to increase the amount of lights that we're gonna put.
That last part?
We'd have to increase the amount of lights to put.
So
So that-
more lights at 15 feet.
Yeah, it would be less safe, and it would actually increase our energy consumption, which is kind of contrary to the whole design of the building, right?
Thank you.
Just following up on that, Eric, you were mentioning about the 15-foot standard being based on previous special permits?
Yes, particularly zoning board of appeals, special permit approvals. They've always required to be 15 feet, but there really is no requirement in zoning that says it has to be 15 feet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Could you, please speak a bit to, some of the mitigation, I'm thinking particularly of the area, in the, southeast, corner of the site?
Yes, so as part of working with the Conservation Commission and with the Order of Conditions, this section of the site here, we are doing significant landscaping and a lot of plantings in there, a lot of native species, specifically native to the western Massachusetts and this area as well, to really enhance that, try to get that back to more of a native overgrowth with the trees and the shrubs as part of what we're doing. We're also going to be going through and taking out some invasive species, and then there'll be some other enhancements in this area as well. So that was all worked out with the Conservation Commission as part of the mitigation of taking sections of the site that are currently just like, that's just a grass area, and really trying to get them back into more like a stream buffer and a wetland plantings, and just overall enhance the overall area with the vegetation that's there.
And sticking with the landscaping, I think of along the Robbins Road, there's a strip there that has like 6 established trees, large trees, and I think you're retaining 2 of those.
That is correct, yes. This section here along Robbins Road is actually, that's the existing parking lot.
Yeah.
That is already there for McDonald's. So yeah, so that section in there is gonna be staying in that area, yes.
2 of the trees, not all of them.
Correct, yes. Yeah, but yeah, the section between that parking that's there and then Robbins Road, yeah, there'll be a couple trees that do remain, yep.
And in the islands in your parking lot, it looked like there were shade trees.
Correct, yes. There are additional trees, as you can see in the parking lot here. There's some additional trees on the entrance coming in, and then there's also lower level shrub and vegetation as well to enhance the overall look of the site. So there's a mixture of trees and vegetation all throughout the overall site, yep.
Thank you. Other board members have thoughts?
Actually,
Please, yes.
let's get the board more.
Yeah.
Several people tonight have brought up the issue of no solar or any other energy related issues. Will you consider solar in the future? I see it's not part of your plan, but.
You know what, I'll say that, I don't know if I'm a mechanical engineer, present tonight, but, we've gone to great lengths to make this one of the most efficient buildings that we've designed so far, at least in the area that I work in, which is Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And, you know, we are planning on making the building solar ready, so the roof would be solar ready. And that's actually a standard that we do on all ground up buildings, not lease spaces, it's not.
Solar ready is a good thing.
Yeah.
Solar there is even better.
And thank you, and just following up on that, certainly the master plan established in 2014 is a sustainable master plan, and the awareness of the need for alternative energy is very deeply embedded. It isn't something that's a requirement, of course, in our zoning ordinance, but it is, we'd be remiss if we didn't address it. And glad to hear we solar ready, so that there is that capacity for that.
You know, to add to that, I think that, you know,
Please.
so there's gonna be no gas or propane at this site, it's all gonna be electric. So that's something new, and that's, you know, that certainly adds to the investment in the facility, but I think it helps meet the requirements.
I thought I read
think none of us would be surprised that the existing Mohawk Trail, Big Y, KFC intersection there is rated at the various times a D, an F, and an F, and an F is the worst rating. And that's current. So obviously the signalization of that intersection is independent of your project. That was something that was already planned, is underway. So I just want to note that, and that would be, according to this study, rated A, B, and B, both either didn't build or would build. What was confusing to me is for the Route 2 Robbins Road Coleraine intersection, it shows that if in the build that during the weekday afternoon it would be a D, and in the no build it would be an E. And that was confusing to me. Why would it be worse if you did build? So that's page 26 of the traffic study. I didn't look into, we have the addendum as well, but I didn't look into all the raw data to try to answer that question.
Okay, you're talking about the difference between the no build and the build?
Yes. Yep. Which seems like if anything, the build would make it a little worse rather than better. At least better.
Right, understandably, that makes sense. Sometimes when the traffic volumes disperse differently, it causes a retiming of the signal that's there. And it causes the traffic signal to call different phases in a different sequence in different timing. So sometimes it results in a slightly better scenario because the traffic's getting called in a different way.
Sorry, I'm not following. So this is projected. This
Correct.
is projected for 2030, no build scenario and build if the store is there scenario. So I would think, if anything, because the morning weekday would be a B with no build, it would go down to a C if there's a build. But it's the opposite direction for the F.
Right, again, that's overall delay, so that could be, like I said, a balance of the traffic that comes, like, in other words, with the Aldi in place, more traffic will come to the Robbins Road location, so it would cause that green light for the Robbins Road to be on for longer and cause delay that's related to that intersection accordingly. If you look at the volume to capacity ratio, those are about the same. So it represents the capacity of the existing road, the proposed roadway under no build and build conditions. Again, that represents it overall, so that's like an average of all of the different approaches. It isn't one approach versus the other.
Okay. I want to rely on the data.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, and that could manifest itself in different ways throughout the different times of day as well, depending on the composition of the traffic coming in and out of the Aldi and along Route 2.
Jeff, would we also, is that signal variable time signal, not a set signal? So with the times that you can actually get through the intersection are different based on the traffic coming through?
Basically, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
So it's not, it's just, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it's not a set time. So based on other traffic on Robbins Road, the time you have on each intersection might be a little different. And I run into this with other developments. It's then the way the synchro software works, it just looks at the overall, because of that, it just slightly adjusts sometimes. And the numbers, when they're right on the cusp, also it can look a little funky.
Thank you. Ben, can you speak, it wasn't a dramatic difference, but it just was in the direction I would have expected. Can you speak to the interaction of synchronization of, we will have those two traffic signals very close together on Mohawk Trail, and how the synchronization of those, or how that would?
Yeah, they'll be coordinated so that when you're on Route 2 and you're heading west, or east for that matter, the traffic will be timed such that if you're getting through one intersection, you'll get through the other. In other words, you won't get trapped in between. Because we don't want the vehicle queue from one signal blocking the ability to get through the intersection of the downstream signal. And Mass DOT looked at that again as part of their design for this project.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from board members? Want to be consistent.
There's something that hasn't come up at all that I thought you were gonna ask, but it's just a point of clarification.
Sure, if you want to
Pardon?
tell the board briefly what the subject is.
It'd be helpful if they would show, if the applicant would show, there's apparently a second road in to this site besides Robbins Road. I didn't see it in the MIPA study, but Robbins Road, as you know, is a dead-end street. So could they show the second roadway in? And also, I haven't heard anyone talk about the queuing. That's right near the Rotary, and if people come off the Rotary, north or south, and they want to go to this location, they're going to have to queue in a very short queue, turning left onto Robbins Road. I don't know what they're considering, but I think this is why I wanted you to have an independent traffic engineer look at this, because I doubt anyone on this board would try to pretend that they're a traffic engineer. And you're asking good questions, but the other concern that I think should come out is, what about that queue?
Thank you. I want to be fair, so
Yeah.
but I'm going to go through the details of the site plan review, and then I'll see if any board members want to pick up on the question you're asking. So this is the site plan review and approval section of our zoning ordinance. The purpose of the site plan review is to ensure that new development conforms to the requirements of this ordinance and is designed in a manner which reasonably protects the visual, environmental, and aesthetic qualities of the neighborhood and the city. And then there's a list of approval guidelines. It says, in considering any site plan submittal, the following concerns shall be reviewed. I'm going to go through them. 1, provision for integrating the project into the existing terrain and surrounding landscape by minimizing use of wetlands, steep slopes, and hilltops, protecting visual amenities and scenic views, preserving unique natural or historical features, minimizing tree, vegetation, and soil removal, minimizing grade changes. So if a member of the board wants to speak to one of these at the time I read it, go ahead, or I'll just go through them for our thought process. Number 2, the use of landscaping to establish buffers between incompatible land uses and to screen unsightly features. Number 3, the provision of open spaces and pedestrian amenities available to the public. Number 4, the arrangement of access points, service roads, driveways, parking areas, lighting, and pedestrian walkways in a manner that maximizes the convenience and safety of pedestrian and vehicular movement within the site and in relation to adjacent ways. 5, ease of access, travel, and on-site movement for fire and police equipment and other emergency services for public safety. Number 6, provisions for underground placement of utilities. 7, provisions for surface runoff and drainage which protects the site and adjacent properties from erosion, maximizes groundwater recharge through low-impact development, stormwater techniques, and prevents the collection of surface runoff on paved surfaces which may obstruct pedestrian or vehicular flow. 8, the siting of buildings, structures, and open spaces to permit maximum use of passive solar energy, to permit maximum protection from adverse impacts of winds, vapors, or other emissions, shadows, and noise, and to provide for adequate light, air, and circulation. 9, protection of historic features and design, which does not detract from properties in the area. 10, measures to prevent pollution or surface or groundwater and to prevent increased flooding. And last one, 11, compliance with the parking, loading, dimensional performance standards, and all other sections of this ordinance. So again, I want to turn to the board if there are any questions sparked by a review of those approval guidelines. Please, yes.
One of the concerns I have, one of the major concerns I have is the traffic. utilize that road 5 to 6 times a week. And you're on the rotary, and you come off that rotary heading west, you have 3 choices. Right to back to BJ's, straight ahead, or to the left, or to the right, because cars do that, or turn into McDonald's. With additional traffic, I see that as being a real stumbling block for fire, police, ambulance. I don't know how that's gonna work. I don't know how you guys are gonna work that out with DPW. It really bothers me, because I'm in that traffic all the time. And I see what people do. And if everybody was careful, it'd be great. But people are on their cell phones, they're patting their dog, they're drinking their coffee. It is a nightmare. You guys don't live there. And I'm pro-business. I've been in business for 40 years. I want business. I want business. I want to support the mayor here in town. But that's something, and that's one thing I don't know how you're going to get addressed.
So I think the best way to say we're going to be addressing that is we're going through the NEPA process, and we have to get the Mass DOT access permit. Based upon that, Mass DOT was saying have an independent traffic consultant review it. I would say Mass DOT is probably the best traffic consultant in the state then to be the one doing the review. So they'll be reviewing the traffic study, and then they're doing the design for the Route 2 improvements, which they have stated in their response for NEPA that they see what they, and in regards to the issues, they specifically made the comment in there that their project is going to be addressing the existing deficiencies that are there as well. So Mass DOT has definitely taken that whole part into concerns.
We haven't seen that project being addressed yet through the Mass group. It's going to happen, but it's not there yet.
We're in that process because
Okay.
it was 2 days ago, I believe, we got the NEPA,
Correct.
the initial NEPA comments from them, which included Mass DOT.
And I think it's also important to mention, you had talked about emergency vehicles, and I think Eric had mentioned earlier that both fire and police have reviewed the plan and had no comments. And I know early on, they had looked at the design as part of our initial staff review meeting. We addressed some minor concerns with circulation the fire department had. So right now, as far as we know, both departments are fine with the development as proposed.
I believe I saw in some of the materials that some of the roadway improvements that MassDOT is working on were going to include bike lanes, Eric, did I see that correctly?
I believe so, that is correct.
Just from the point of view of multimodal travel being improved there, because that's a pretty daunting environment for cyclists.
Don't say many.
Any? Oh. I know when I was reviewing this before, I was struck with the, and I'm just, trying to, juxtapose your stated response to my question earlier about the LID, low impact development, and, this approval guideline that we're required to take into account. It mentions that provisions that which maximizes groundwater recharge through low impact development, stormwater techniques. And I heard your assertion that they wouldn't work there. And I'm just wanting to have a bit more of a discussion about that, I think, just to understand, given our mandate to try to ensure it's been maximized. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that under the existing condition, the site basically sheet flows untreated and unchecked primarily into the Mohawk Trail and then also into parts of Robbins Road. Under the proposed development, if you've had an opportunity to review the drainage report, you'll see that we've reduced runoff rates almost 100% to Mohawk Trail. That's also a requirement of Mass DOT. So what we had to do is we had to take the water, we had to find another place for it. And basically what we did is we are collecting it, as I mentioned. It'll be collected through deep sump catch basins with oil water hoods that aid in TSS removal. It'll then be directed to an at-grade sediment forebay where you'll get more TSS removal before it's directed into the underground infiltration system. And then what we're required to do is we're required to basically mitigate the 25-year storm event. So we have to basically reduce the peak runoff rates for up to and including the 25-year storm event, which we've done. For any discharge going into the Smead Brook, we basically eliminated 100% for any runoff going into Mohawk Trail. And as I mentioned relative to LID, we do look to do that. Unfortunately, some sites just don't warrant it, and this is one of those sites. But what we did do is come up with a sophisticated and comprehensive stormwater design that basically meets all of the standards under the Massachusetts stormwater guidelines, as well as all of the city's requirements. So we meet or exceed all of those requirements that we are bound to do as part of a project like this. It's also important to note that we're only using 30% roughly of the site for impervious cover. 70% of the site's going to remain basically as is. And I know there's been talk about impacts to wetlands. There'll be no impacts to wetlands. We have no direct wetland impacts. We have no impacts to the 25-foot no disturb zone. So what we really tried to do is we really took a long, hard look at this site and really tried to put a building, somebody had mentioned, that fits the site. We really think we've done that. We've come up with a design that takes everything into consideration, from landscape buffers, stormwater management, lighting. We have a lighting design that, as mentioned, is designed to be safe, but light where we want it, where people walk, where people travel. There'll be no light trespass onto abutting properties. There'll be no light trespass onto abutting rights of way. So again, just another aspect of the design that really ties it into this particular area of the city and this particular site itself. And we've heard the concerns from very early on in the process about the site and wetlands and riverfront traffic. And I think we've done everything possible to basically come up with the best design for the site when considering all of those aspects, both under existing and proposed conditions.
Thank you. I also wanted to come back to the height of the light and just talk about it a little bit from the point of view of its impact on neighbors, because I know this does have some residential properties quite close. And I'm just trying to get a sense of what would be the visual impact. Because I've seen, some lights that are at that height and some that are lower, and it can have a different impact on you. If you're so the two houses on Robbins Road, what would you think their experience would be of those lights? Just to give an example.
I don't think it's going to have really any difference of impact when you consider 25 versus 15 for the houses along Robbins, and that's because the site is higher. From Robbins to the finished floor, you're looking at about a 10-foot change in elevation. So if you're in one of those houses and you happen to stare directly at one of the lights, you're going to see, the underside of the light, but they're full cutoff, they're down lights. And what I think would be better is having I think it's 14 area lights that we got at 25 feet in height. Because with the higher light, you get a wider light spread. If we go with 15 feet, you're probably going to have somewhere in the 25 to 30 light fixtures on the site. So anybody looking at the site from Robbins Road, under how we have it designed, might see 3 or 4 of those. If we go with 15 feet, they might see 10 or 15 of them. So again, what we've tried to do is balance the height of the lights versus the number of the lights to provide a safe and efficient lighting plan. And as Rich mentioned a little while ago, the 14 lights that we got are going to conserve energy significantly over adding potentially double what you have there under the current design.
Do we have any sense of the height of the lights in the Big Y and the Home Depot parking lots? Because I don't think they're 15 yet.
I think the Big Y, the lighting is taller than depending on whether the Home Depot was approved by, before my time, ZBA, is probably 15 feet.
Yeah, and just generally speaking, and, you know, for developments like this, lighting height is typically between 20 and 30 feet for a retail development like this. So this is certainly in keeping with that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just want to state that the Department of Planning and Development has no issues with the height being 25 feet for the light poles.
Okay. So you would initially had a recommendation to go to 15,
Based on our previous DDA rules.
and now you're saying,
Yeah, I'm saying that, you know, recollection of those sites and the types of sites they were, it kind of made sense to go down 15 feet, but in not all cases, some of those would probably be relevant as it is in this site. But in this site, I agree that it's less energy is a better thing, less lighting is a better thing, less poles. So, like I said, the Department of Planning and Development has no issues with the light poles remaining at proposed 25 feet height.
thank you. Should be update. Do board members have further comments or questions? Pause while we read my notes. I had one to ask about hours of operation and hours of delivery.
Hours of operation, typically 9 to 8 o'clock. Occasionally we open up 8:30.
And deliveries?
Deliveries, deliveries really dependent on the route, so, because it goes to multiple stores, it will depend on the route. That's set for the different stores. So if there's like an ideal time, we can try to work within that time. As far as if you're looking to have it delivered at a certain time.
Well, I just wondered what the rate would be as far as.
Oh, it would probably be from 7 to 6. Yeah.
Thank you. So the, and the ordinance, the decision on site plan review, it says the site plan may be approved or approved with conditions. For approval of a site plan, the reviewing authority may request the applicant to make a modification to the proposed design of the project. If the site plan does not comply with the purposes and requirements of this ordinance, it may be disapproved. If disapproved, the plan may be revised and resubmitted without prejudice. Want again the board and also members of the public to hear that process described. Once again, ask, is there anything from the board or is someone on the board in a position of wanting to make a motion? Is there further discussion on it? If you want to have it. If you would. So I'll ask again for a motion.
I move that we approve the site plan review, with the conditions that the developers meet all of the requirements from all of the reviewing boards.
Could I ask him to be a little more specific, because I know Eric had offered some specific language. I don't know if you were figuring out the numbers he had there, because he had revised his recommendation about the lighting plan and the bicycle rack has been addressed, so I didn't know if you want to reference, when you say all the boards, I'm not sure. You'll be on the Conservation Commission
Yes.
and
DOT.
okay, the ones that are listed in Eric's recommendations, 3 and 4, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
Sorry.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Yes, just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, on the conditions, so move to approve and seconded. With the conditions, the applicant shall submit a copy of the following to the planning board required instructions, stormwater pollution prevention plan, highway access permit issued by Mass DOT, construction general permit issued by USDPA, and it shall adhere to the order of conditions issued on March 1st, 2023. Just want to make sure that's what was the intent was. And also from the Department of Public Works, let's see. You were dealt with for a second, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that
Sure.
they have dealt with the Department of Public Works comments adequately.
Yep, I know there's a lot. I'm sure it's-
Yes, the DPW also mentioned that an access permit for DOT is required, so that's in there. And also the comment is that the horizontal thrust blocking and vertical thrust blocking details of sheet C 902 indicate that all concrete shall be 2,500 PSI. City requires 4,000 PSI concrete thrust blocking. The applicant's response, this detail has been revised as requested and will be included in the next issue plan set. So the only other condition would be a revised plan set meeting all this within 30 days of approval.
Does that match your intention? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. All right, if there's no further discussion by the board, I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. We are very excited about the project. Really look forward to bringing all these things to you. Thank you.
Very good.
The next item is given the open space festival, so we have two A&R. The first one is for 336 and 350 Rain Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can get the file as well.
Great, thank you. Oh, yes. There's somewhere in my stack.
Yeah, if I get those before you leave tonight.
Yeah.
There's still
And obviously, Louise was on.
just one,
Yeah, I didn't get something we couldn't sign up for.
And I didn't catch all the names.
Well, it wasn't
It wasn't about.
I've been thinking about it. I looked it up yesterday to see what
This lot exists now.
That's one lot, yeah.
Two lots. This
Oh.
lot was, this lot.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah.
And what they're gonna do is, this lot, they'll break up this piece of land
Yeah.
here and convey it to 135.
But I couldn't understand that little triangle there, when it was separated out, I couldn't quite figure out what
Yeah,
that was.
it's an odd shaped piece that's separate, part of this little break, this is not, what is all one piece. There's no question about the shape. Exactly why they go with this shape. It doesn't affect frontage, but the land area still meets all the requirements.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to endorse this? Yes. I don't assume we know what they're gonna do. That's not our purview, right? What they're gonna do. So I think that's an owner, you don't know what that.
No, I don't have any,
Okay.
other than they want to convey it to that 335 claim.
Gotcha. Okay. And is there a motion to endorse this A&R?
I move we endorse this A&R.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
And is this when we say that we give you approval to sign on behalf of?
That is what you make a motion for that purpose, yes.
I move that we approve George Columbus to sign on behalf of the board for the A&R.
Second? Someone second?
Yes, you.
Thank you. Go ahead, second.
So nice to see everybody.
Okay. You too, David. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the vice chair to sign on behalf of the board. Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's right.
All in favor of you signing, so no one else has.
Oh, I'm sorry, will you still record?
You're all set.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you, Rick. We got this, go to the second one. This is on
Black Road. This one's a little easier, you understand. Over here.
Right.
So, right now, one lot is this, right here. Purpose of this plan is to break off this piece here. This, if you add it up, is 200 feet of frontage exactly, and this is going to be in 204.7.
Right.
So they meet the frontage requirements, the land area requirements. For something or,
So that would be a buildable lot.
it's a buildable lot.
So they're just combining the two lots into one?
No,
No, they're breaking
Separate.
this
They're breaking
into two.
it out.
Breaking one into two.
Each one is a buildable lot.
Exactly, breaking that buildable lot right there.
One already has a
It's already built.
So breaking out the land.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to endorse that?
Endorse that A&R.
Very good. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I move we allow Vice Chair George Columbus to sign the A&R.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Board and staff reports. Anything that we had in that regard?
Just, my, I just mentioned it, it's not really staff, just, Tony Wanseski's here from SB Associates. He mentioned to me he'd be coming to this meeting, talk about potential amendment to definition of three-family home, Greenfield. Wondering if you would entertain him for a few minutes of, his time, in your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you entertain us, I guess?
I'll do my best.
Is that right? That's it. Bells and whistles here.
And could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Tony Wanseski, I live at 21 Silvercrest Circle here in Greenfield. And I just wanted to stop by at a meeting and request that the planning board review the definition of three-family dwelling. And also, in that review, I would like the board to consider recommending a change to the council
If you read the three-family dwelling unit, it's more restrictive than the two-family, which is a duplex. Three-family is a triplex, but in the definition, it requires one of the dwelling units to be above or below. I'm not sure why it was written that way, but it makes me believe that it was written so that, well, by right, an older home could have two units, and you could have a unit in the basement, or you could have two units on the ground and then a second floor unit. If we would just make that be a three-family unit, commonly called the triplex as opposed to a two-family duplex, it would still give the ability for builders to be able to do something like that, but it also would give the ability for new construction to build a triplex or a three-unit family dwelling, all that grade. There's reasons for that. Sometimes you have poor soils, you have ledge, you can't build basements to be able to do something like that. And it also gives the opportunity to have ground floor units for elderly folks and also for disabled folks. So just to give them flexibility, then you can have those kinds of done. Obviously, they have to meet zoning and all the criteria, dimensional criteria to be able to do it. So that's my simple request, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone on the board have any questions?
I guess specifically, I'm just kind of curious, you're saying that we require that should somebody want to build a three-family, that one has to be on the top, because I live in a two-family, so
Yeah.
I'm on the top and I have a tenant on the bottom.
Yeah.
And you're saying there may be some situations in which you would want to build like three side by side?
Yes, three side by side at ground level.
Okay.
And I just think to give that flexibility to a builder, you might see more of that as opposed to trying to do, and even changing it, like I said, gives the builder an opportunity if they buy a large home and create three families, could be a second floor and then two downstairs, or one in the basement, one at first floor, and one on the second floor. But if somebody came in and say they had poor soils and then they wanted to build a triplex, 3 units side by side for apartment, right now they can't do it. And it opens it up to provide more opportunity for building, especially ground floor, which can be not accessible for elderly folks or disabled. I think it's just, and it doesn't take away from anything. You could still do the vertical or elevated units if you wanted to.
So the flexibility lies in the fact that if we were to change it, it would not require one of the three units to be on top of the other.
Or below. It says on top or below. So it'd be a basement or
Yeah.
It's
It would just
ground
be, a
floors.
three-family consists of 3 units.
3 units,
Yeah.
however you want to arrange it. And,
Okay.
So that's all I'm asking.
I'll just say, I've never heard that. I've never zoned in on that, no pun intended.
Well, no.
Yeah, I never
mean,
thought of
part
it,
of the ordinance,
that there might have been a requirement that you couldn't do 3 side by side.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it was, but it was probably for conversion purposes of
Yeah.
existing home. And I've gone through that code so many times, and I've never had a project that would have a triplex before, but it's always good to have the ground level floors. I think just gives availability to aging population. I don't like going up and down the stairs anymore.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it again.
No, my knees are just.
Still do, but don't like it.
Yes.
Eric, I wondered if you can offer anything from your experience about other, zoning ordinances, or is this an anomaly, or?
I've done the research, so, if the board is inclined to change that definition, I would do some research on different town definitions, but I haven't run into it previously. Tony was the first time bringing forth one, and to bring this whole issue up. Nobody's ever had us look at the definition before, there was no need. But ever since those amendments to allow 1, 2, and 3 by right now residential districts,
Right,
it's
right.
probably going to be utilized more and more often, and it is a restriction now. It doesn't allow the full level of development opportunities.
Right.
There's a lot of
Again, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of big homes in Greenfield too.
Yeah.
So,
It levels the playing field.
well, Okay. We are entertaining each other.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we understand.
So,
What happens when the people leave?
before you do any, work on this, on the research, just wanted to see a sense of, from the board.
No, I think this is very reasonable.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I agree. So, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Awesome, thank you.
And
Yeah.
I have a 2-family that maybe I want to be a 3-family, so.
What's your address?
Right. Well, great, thank you very much for this.
Okay.
Thank you, good to see you.
See you.
See you, Roxanne.
Yeah, nice to see you, Tom. Is that your coffee cup or your water cup
It is
or
my,
whatever?
it's my Yeti, yes.
Yeah.
See? I put it in my lap, I would have figured I'd drop it, so I
Yeah.
put it on the floor and forgot it. Thank you.
Bye now.
Was there anything else as far as?
As one of the more captive members of the planning board, I'm sort of interested in gauging the interest in moving to one monthly meeting, with the caveat we can meet if an A&R requires a consideration within the 21-day window, because I would be more willing to stay on this board if it were a monthly meeting and not a bi-monthly meeting.
What is it, I haven't really, I know you work more with Charles or whoever the chair is on this, but what has been the, how feasible would that be to shoot for monthly meetings? I mean, obviously that might be longer. But as far as, deadlines and timetables and stuff.
Yeah, Amy adequately mentioned the only issue with the A&R plans because of the approval time frame of 21 days. The Conservation Commission also has that 20-day thing, which is why they meet twice a month. But
CBA meets still twice a month?
no,
No,
ZBA's
no.
always met once a month.
Only once,
And
oh,
they,
okay.
yeah, they've always met once a month, and they don't have to meet at all unless there's any business in front of them, whereas the planning board is required to meet monthly once, even if there's no business in
Yeah.
front of them. So it's a difference between that and the planning board, but in the ZBA, I would say that it's totally feasible if we were to have a monthly meeting, but then if an A&R plan comes in that requires approval within that 21-day constructive approval timeframe. then-
Well, I talked to Mark Maloney, who is going on to the ZBA, and he mentioned that that was a more attractive position because of the frequency of the
interesting.
meetings. And since we are, I wouldn't say we're unpopular, but we are having difficulty attracting and retaining membership, we might want to make some adjustments to make ourselves a little more attractive.
After all those years, I think there were many months that we just didn't meet the second time because there was no real business. In really active development periods, you might have a project that would require, especially lengthy public hearings. But those are few and far between. I think it makes some sense. And as somebody who has to go now and find people to serve on these boards, you might have a very good point.
I don't know, with the MDR thresholds the way they are now, we're less likely to get special permit, public hearings, but if you turn it back, if you add it back to the old way, but right now.
Is there any I guess if you were to decide to do that, obviously you've acknowledged that the A&R has its own time limit and that might require a second meeting. But I don't know that you are prevented from having a second meeting if you need one. If you say only one meeting.
No, you can hold special
It's a
meeting
consensus of the committee
Exactly.
that you would have to understand that, okay, this project might require that we meet again.
And that would be a short meeting.
Yeah.
We just meet outside. Or vice.
Sorry.
Okay, and I guess we'd be shooting for the first one of the month, is that just to keep it simple, or is that?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, that's a good discussion point. So the first meeting could be either one, but the first one makes sense.
Speaking of, do we have anything in 2 weeks from today that's slotted?
Only thing possible would be if the Franklin Regional Council of Governments gave the final amendments to the open space cluster development ordinance, but that could always be, and it's not
That's not time
public
sensitive.
hearing or time sensitive, you could actually put that out for the monthly meeting.
So it's a perfect month to not have a second meeting.
Yes, it is.
Imagine George's surprise.
Yeah, there's no
It's a
business right
bonus.
now.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
thanks
Charles,
for
I said
suggesting
George,
that.
but Charles.
No, that's a good suggestion. Very nice.
I hate to think of you feeling you're held hostage here, but I so appreciate your willingness to continue serving, I'll tell you.
As do
I
I.
was really enjoying my status in Greenfield as the reason why all these would or wouldn't come. And live on forever in infamy.
The people go down and say, hey, Amy approved this story.
Yeah,
It was a long pause.
getting out of these uniforms.
As far as kind of a segue about the MDR thing, I mean, that has been something we've talked about over the last year or two, I guess. And now we have an example of, where something would have been having that higher level of scrutiny. I certainly know, at the time, I really was concerned about that, as I say, more than the French King overlay. This seemed to have more broad impacts and implications. So I know I can't even remember what exactly they were before they got changed, but I'm sure Eric could
Well,
pick
just
that
the
up or
traffic
something.
thing, it went
I
from
bet if I tried hard, I could.
3,000 to 1,000, so it went from 3,000 vehicle trips in the GC to 1,000.
50,000 square feet versus being smaller or larger, whatever the other.
And also expansions were just
Yeah,
dropped, right?
expansions were dropped completely.
Right.
And the numbers of the size of the store went way down, way up, so that it would require.
So is that something the board would want to discuss about potentially making a proposal about that? Revisiting the MDR standards?
I don't think there's gonna be much of an appetite for that, but I'm not opposed. I agree with you. I think it should have triggered a traffic study. But I do think we should wait till we have a more robust, board.
Okay.
If they were to be amended, the traffic, this is one example, the traffic went from 3,000 to 1,000. Arbitrarily didn't, the number I would advocate for is 2,000, because that's where the threshold is for a MEPA review. Might as well make it based on some logical number.
Right, to some comparison, because I know it was acknowledged at the time by Rudy as the president of the council who was involved in this compromise, that they just kind of came up with, there wasn't any comparative research or something like that. So that's what I think would be a nice process. It would be, I think, a service to the town. That would be, this board that would do that kind of research. So, but I appreciate what you're saying about the timing and stuff. So maybe we can put that on the agenda as a discussion item for the first September meeting.
Sure.
We anticipate Charles will be back. Any other topics people want to touch on tonight? We have a next meeting, which will be September 1st Thursday. No date that is offhand?
6th, is it? No, yeah, 6th.
Could be.
Yeah, I think it is. No, it's September 7th, because I know the ZBA is 14th, so it would be 7th.
7th, okay. That'd be our next meeting, okay. Nice. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?